All right, so I'm here to give a bit of an overview of mobile esports. For those of you that are expecting Greg from Mob Crush, unfortunately he couldn't make it, so I'm a partner with Mob Crush, so I will take his place for this overview. But yeah, mobile esports, and I'll allude to this throughout the presentation, it's something that has literally just taken off in, I would say, the past year or two. And I'll also be on a panel with, of course, can you guys hear me, by the way? The microphone's good? All right. I'll also be on the panel with Haney from Super Evil Megacorp. Obviously, the Vainglory is one of the biggest drivers in the mobile esports scene. So, a lot of things I'll be talking about will be making reference to that. So, before I begin, let me just talk a little bit more about. So just 1 second as I figure out how to work this. Yeah, about mobile esport. So I've actually been in mobile gaming for quite a few years. I spent 7 years in Beijing. I actually worked for the Zynga Beijing studio, working on various different games there, from the casuals to the casinos to the CCGs. And I returned to Vancouver last year. Spent a lot of time doing business development for Roadhouse Interactive, and just doing a lot of the business development marketing side of things on mobile. I really believed in the potential of esports on mobile. A lot of things which I'll allude to later, basically reaffirms my belief that seeing the growth of esports over the years, I think it's inevitable that it will take off in mobile. So I started mobile esport as a side project in January when Clash Royale first came out. So a lot of people are questioning, is Clash Royale really an esport? I played it. I talked to the guys in Supercell. Actually, they didn't believe that they built an esports game initially, but maybe they put things in there to see if it had that potential, and now they're going all in. They're hiring a full-time esports position, and they really want to make this into an esports game. But the minute I played it, I really believed that it had that potential. I built the site on the side. The game went global launch in March, and that's where I got my first burst of traffic. Having a site that basically covered the content of Clash Royale. So on the left, so I interviewed the winner of the Helsinki tournament. So how many of you guys watched that tournament in Helsinki? Anyone? Okay, a few of you guys. So it really proved that this simple synchronous PvP mobile game actually had the potential to be an esports game, because they held a huge tournament. They invited people from all over the world, including just guys from Helsinki. And the funny thing is, the guy that won the tournament, Jason, he was a local in Helsinki. He went in thinking that, this is just going to be a local meetup, and he walked out of there with 10,000 euros. So amazing story. And after I wrote the article, the guys at Clash Royale retweeted it, and they've been really good at sharing my stuff on social media. And of course, on the competitive side, so I mentioned Mob Crush, so they were actually my first sponsors. And that's me on the top left corner there, so my in-game name, Wago. And I was streaming a live tournament with an influential Twitch YouTuber named Crucial. So it was a lot of fun, and for those of you that want to learn about twitching and streaming, the best way to get into it is just try it. It's not as easy as it looks. So in mobile esports, so why is this all this talk about mobile esports? So these are just some random facts that I'm going to drop, and because it's something that's relatively new. You read a lot about reports on esports in general, but mobile esports, basically the facts and information are pieces that are all over the place. But these are the facts that kind of stood out for me personally. So a research from Superdata showed that in 2015, 19% of esports fans in the US also watch mobile titles. So there's a bit of good synergy there, that people that follow esports also like to follow things on mobile. And actually, in a lot of articles that I've written lately, it's been shown that a lot of these top League of Legends, CSGO, Hearthstone players actually have started playing Clash Royale and Vainglory. So there's quite a bit of overlap there. And speaking about the Asia markets, this is an East meets West panel, so I thought it'd be interesting to point out. Mobile esports in China represents 24% of top grossing titles on Android and 19% of iOS. I mean, that is huge. And again, this depends on how you define mobile esports. A lot of games that are considered mobile esports in China might not necessarily be considered the same here in the West. But basically, a lot of these synchronous PvP games, which have an audience that likes to watch people play these games and have live prizes and tournaments. So in a sense, it's different than what we would categorize what would be a mobile esports game in the West. but it's becoming very popular in China. And South Korea, I mean, Haney from Vainglory can probably talk more about this, but they became the first mobile game to be admitted as a featured eSports in 2015. And so with all this momentum in the East, a lot of people believe that it's inevitable that in North America and Europe, the growth for mobile esports is there, and in a lot of reports that I've read, it's expected to outpace the growth of that in Asia in the coming years with an influx of new products and investment. So why mobile esports? So 4 points to justify why I personally believe mobile esports has the potential to take off. Accessibility. So I mean, everyone talks about that, right? I mean, we all have our mobile devices. I heard someone start off Clash Royale. You know that sound when you start the game with Supercell. It's everywhere. I mean, everyone can be playing games that are mobile esports on the go. Whereas if you're playing League of Legends, you're sitting down in front of your PC for at least an hour per session, right? The volumes of users. So. Christian from Vainglory, he always likes to make this case that there are 3 billion devices out there, mobile devices out there that are mobile esports ready compared to the 700 and 800 million gaming PCs that are out there. Devices and platforms, so over years, I mean, this is just a general trend in mobile gaming. As devices get more sophisticated, they're able to support higher quality and more sophisticated gameplay. So with that, it's not a stretch to see bigger and better MOBAs, FPS games on mobile. And just because of that accessibility and the volume of players out there, it's a lot easier to host events and tournaments, which is a core aspect of mobile gaming. So anyone who has a smartphone can go to a LAN party, and they can just show up and start competing in a tournament if the in-game technology supports that. And so let's take a look at the ecosystem. It's, for those of you that are familiar with mobile gaming, this might look a little bit different than what you're used to. In mobile gaming, I mean, everyone talks about the role of the developer, the publisher, UA, and you have your free-to-play gamers and you have your converted players. So this is the ecosystem for esports and mobile esports. I mean, you still have your publishers, so you still have guys like Supercell and Vainglory. But what's different with mobile esports is a consideration for esports teams. So this is a trend that I'll be talking about later on this presentation, is that with esports, there's already been a lot of esports teams that are established. And this is, it draws from professional sports, right? You need to have teams to compete in sports. And so nowadays, if you look at esports news, a lot of high-profile investors, such as Rick Fox, formerly of Los Angeles Lakers, you have Shaquille O'Neal, and you have a lot of these high-profile celebrities that are starting to inject money into the ecosystem. So you have your teams, you have your events and leagues. So those of you that follow esports, you might be familiar with ESL. So they've been around for a good 10 plus years. They've been running leagues and tournaments starting in Europe, but now all over the world. And of course, you have the content providers. In the same way that ESPN covers sports and Sportsnet covers sports, there's already been a host of sites that cover esports. And so basically what Mo Esports is trying to do is become I would say the ESPN for mobile esports, and that's what I believe mobile esports has. The potential to really become something that people would want to, open the web browser every day and start following the news. What's happening with the latest players? What's the latest rankings? And what's the latest tournaments? And how do I be a part of that? And when you look at the big circles, at the core of mobile esports is the professional gaming. At the end of the day, you need to have those players that are dedicated, that are basically the best of the best, and they are respected by everyone else in the ecosystem as being the best of the best. And then you have your streamers and channels. So obviously, Twitch. Everyone's been talking about Twitch, how it's been such an influencer in not just esports, but in the gaming community in general. And then you have the amateur gamers that aspire to be those that are competing at the professional level, and of course all the gamers in general. So this is just an example of all the players in the different parts of the ecosystem, and in a sense we all work together to try to build up the mobile esports ecosystem, and it's not exclusive neither. You have esports teams that are hosting tournaments, you have leagues that are providing content, you have my company, Mo eSport, we work directly with the developers to try to produce content, to try to influence the ecosystem and try to get people to be more aware of the latest features, updates, and tournaments. So it's a very different than the mobile ecosystem that a normal game developer might be used to. And for those of you that are interested to kind of think about, so where's this going? Is mobile esports really going to take off? I think we just need to look at China right now. In the same way that esports really kind of started with the movement in Korea. No one thought that StarCraft was going to be a huge esports hit, but Korea just took it to the next level and really became a thing that drove the movement of esports in general. And for me personally, just looking at the growth in China, I think they are a good reflection of what might be happening in the West. So I already spoke about the revenue potential there. A lot of the Chinese developers have integrated some esports mechanics into the games that have led to revenue potential. And not just that, you have the support of people that are influential on the macro level. Of course, you have corporate support. Last year, there was something that was called the China Mobile Esports Alliance that was formed. And basically, this is an alliance of 13 of the top gaming companies. I think it includes 360 Mobile, Hero Entertainment, some streaming channels, some content providers that basically all grouped together and said that, okay, let's make an alliance, let's make this happen, because we feel like mobile esports is a new way for us to make money and generate content that people would be interested in. There's government support, and this is something that was very surprising. So the General Administration of Sports in China actually was directly involved with the first China Mobile Esports gaming event that was held, I think, a couple months ago. And it's just very surprising to know that the government actually supports games. A little bit of context in that too. And I think because of all the propaganda that happens in China, I feel like mobile games it's their way to get people's minds off the other things that they see in the media. And an established fan base. So I talked about a little bit about the Helsinki tournament. So there was a big Clash Royale tournament in Shanghai last month, and it was reported that the tournament. An interesting thing, actually, I'm talking a little bit more about this tournament. The reason why this tournament got so much hype is because the richest person in China's son, someone by the name of Wang Sicong, he's actually a big Clash Royale player, and he's a big influencer in the esports community in China. So he took part in this tournament along with a guy named Derek who owns Hong Kong eSports. So they were the headliners of this tournament. It caught a lot of attention in the media, and it was reported that this tournament that was streamed online by a channel called 5kong.tv reached a peak of 2.8 million viewers. So again, numbers in China tend to be skewed, but regardless of how accurate this is, it's a big number. So for those of you that are developers or are interested in getting into the esports scene, you might be wondering, so what does it take to make a successful mobile esports game? So this is personally 4 things that I've identified. So gameplay, balance, and depth. I think this is the core when you're starting a game from scratch. You don't have to build a game specifically for esports, but when you're building a game, you must think about, okay, so how do you make a game that is well balanced and has the depth that people would want to invest a lot of time and effort into playing? So again, using Vainglory as an example, they built the game as an esports game. And contrasting to that, Clash Royale, a lot of people still complain that it's pay to win. I mean, the fact that they are a top grossing game in over 100 countries means that there is a system in place that people have a way to kind of pay for the way up. But at the same time, now they have the tournament caps, and they're doing a lot of things in game to make players at least have the feeling that they can compete on a balanced level. A second thing that's really important is the community. So just like in sports, you need to have a lively and active community to want to talk about the game, to want to follow everything that's happening. I was talking to a community manager just a couple of days ago about the importance of community in mobile games. And honestly, I think doing community for esports games is just so much easier because just being a content provider, people are thirsty for information. They want to know what's happening. They want to know who the top players are, and they want to know what's happening in the tournament scene. That they are proactively searching for content for these games, and that's the kind of draw you want when you have a game in the mobile esports ecosystem. Another thing to consider is appeal to spectators. So I talked a little bit about Twitch and Mob Crush. So you want a game that's not just fun to play, but it's also fun to watch. I mean, that's something that's really important, and sometimes people neglect. You can make a game that's well balanced, it's well thought out, it's competitive to play, it takes skill to play. But if it's not fun to watch, and people don't. People nowadays, they have a little bit of ADHD syndrome, right? They don't want to sit in front of the screen and just watch the same thing over and over again. An example for this would be a lot of games that are trying to copy the Hearthstone model. So CCGs are not that fun to watch, to be honest. You can have people that are really skilled players, and people complain about the fact that, okay, there's a lot of what they call RNG, random number generator in Hearthstone, that, okay, I don't think it takes a lot of skill, but it adds to the fact that it's fun to watch. So all these games that are trying to copy the Hearthstone model and say that, oh no, this takes more skill than Hearthstone, they're great, but is it as fun to watch? The way that Blizzard designed the game to have that very kind of fun and interactive UI with good sound effects and things like that. I think that adds to the appeal of the viewership. And of course, competition. This is an important driver of mobile esports. You need to have a regular cadence of tournaments, both online and live, because if people want to compete, you got to give them a reason to compete. And so let me just see if I can play this video. I hyped up a lot about the potential for mobile esports, and I talked about the Helsinki tournament. So this is just a 1-minute video to show you the potential that mobile esports has. So after watching that, I would think that a lot of people in the room would probably want to be there live to experience that. It's very different. Who would imagine that this game that I'm playing on the phone, like every couple minutes, a session can become something that would engage with the audience. And keep in mind that this was obviously an edited video, but the emotions of the audience and the players are real. And the fact that they're able to put together such a high production value event based on a game with 3-minute gameplay sessions, it's amazing. And just kind of watching that, I think it drew a lot of attention. It drew, it really allowed people to imagine what this game can be. And during this week, a lot of sessions talked about the acquisition of Supercell by Tencent. And I think seeing the potential of this tournament is a big reason why Tencent decided to spend $10.9 billion acquiring Supercell. And so what can we expect in the future of mobile esports then? And obviously we'll talk a lot about this in the sessions. Hi Haney, there's some of your pictures here. But this is what I predict will happen in mobile esports in the coming years to come. So right now, there's only so many games in the mobile esports ecosystem. When you compare it to PC, you have multiple mobile games. There's not just League of Legends and Dota, but there's also Heroes of the Storm. There's multiple first-person shooter games. And I think, as people see the potential in mobile esports, there are going to be more players that enter this market. And even as I speak, I already know a lot of developers are working on games that are either built to be esports games, or they think that it has the potential to be shifted into something that is esports worthy. So definitely expect more games to come, and that's part of what I want to do with Mo Esports as well. To be able to cover these games as they come into the market. More statistics and content. So some of the things that PC games have done really well is to provide third-party APIs so that companies like myself can draw data and kind of be creative and build tools to engage with the users. So let's say if I want to run my own leagues and tournaments, I can directly draw information from the game itself to be able to provide statistics, to record who wins and who loses. And I know for a fact that a lot of the developers that are developing mobile esports games are considering this. And again, alluding to Super Evil Megacorp, obviously they've done a really good job of trying to collect the statistics and trying to provide more information for the fans of the game so that they can be more engaged beyond just watching people play. Third thing, bigger cash prizes and sponsors. And a lot of media talk about this, obviously. And when you read about esports articles, it's almost the only thing they talk about. It's like, oh, League of Legends, Dota, huge cash prizes. It's probably going to take a while before mobile becomes a headliner because of its cash prize. But as we've seen with the Vainglory tournaments and as I said in the Helsinki tournament, cash prizes are already in the 5 digits. So it's just a matter of time before they get even bigger and bigger. And finally, a higher production value for events and tournaments. As you saw in the video that I just showed, that production value, I mean, I don't know the exact cost, but it's not cheap to put together an event like that. And you compare that to the events that you watch on Twitch streams, obviously the production value, it's a lot higher. And I think for some of the companies like myself to put together events that would stand out from the rest of the tournaments, events, and streams out in the market, we really need to take it up a notch and put together high production value events that are almost reminiscent of the things that you watch on TV and ESPN. So that wraps up my presentation. I think it would be best to hold questions on until the panel because I think other than myself, there'll be a lot of people that will be able to provide really good insights on what's happening in mobile esports. And so with that, that wraps up my presentation. Thanks.